hedging and the use of modals. Hedging is a very important concept in academic writing because academic writers are expected to make judgments about claims and data that are not too strong or not too weak, but somewhere in the middle. So it's very important that you situate your claims in an appropriate way. But this is also, and this is very important to us, a way of expressing your identity or attitude toward the claims that you're making. And so how strong a claim do you want to make? How weak a claim do you want to make? And there are various ways of hedging that we've discussed in other videos. You can use reporting verbs, you can use adverbs, you can use tenses, and here we're going to look at the use of modals. They're categorized modals into three different functions. One is prediction, which is probably the most common. So in English, we don't have a future tense, as they do in many languages. We predict the future. So this is perhaps the most common, and therefore it has the most items. So a clear prediction, 100% prediction, would be will. I will go to the movie on Friday. And then a slightly more hedged position is can. I can go to the movie on Friday. Maybe that's around 80%. And then I may go to the movie on Friday. Maybe that's about 50%. We also have words like would and could. And those are, even though they're past tenses of will and can, and sometimes they're used as past tenses, they're also used as predictions. But most of the time they're used with a clause. If I had enough money, I would go. Or if I had enough money, I could go. So that in order for the prediction to come true, you have to fulfill the condition. So normally you're going to use words like would and could with predictions, whereas if you're not with conditionals, and if you don't have a conditional, you could use will, can, or may. The second category is your ability to do something. And we can say, I can do this. Now again, can is also predictive. And so here you can say it has you have the ability to do something, but you may not be able to do it, or you may not necessarily do it. Could, I could do this, again, is a more hedged version of can. And then the final category is obligation. So you must do this or you should do this. And remember, obligation is often based on your relationship to the person to whom you're speaking or writing. So if you say you must do this, you have one kind of relationship in which you feel comfortable telling somebody what to do. If you say you should do this, then that's a different relationship. So sometimes here the nature of the words have to do with your relationship to your audience. Now let's look at some examples. In number one, although students know that their professors steal their work, they still keep silence since they need to get a good recommendation. So the question you want to ask, and again, there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, is do they always know? Or do they sometimes know? So you might want to say, although they may know that their professors steal their work, okay? But know as a present tense means 100%. They always know this. And that may be true, but unless you have some evidence to support this, you may need to hedge it, okay? So they still keep silent. Do they always keep silent? Or sometimes, or often, or sometimes keep silent? Since they need to get a good recommendation. And do they always need a good recommendation? Or will they may need a good recommendation? So again, here you have to balance between making an overly strong statement, since you have no real evidence to support a really strong statement, but at the same time you have to judge whether this is too weak a claim. Okay, so here in number 2, scientists will gather. Do they always gather? So maybe here it's better to say scientists often gather. So here the modal is 100%, but you can change a modal with an adverb and reduce it to 80%. And again, it may be 100% of the time, but the question you want to answer is, how much evidence do I have that that is the case? So in number 3, we do see here the writer used modals. Students often expect that their advisor guide and help them their career. Now, this is an interesting case, and it's a little hard to understand, but the problem is using guide and help without a modal. And it doesn't sound right. So here we can put a modal in. Now the question is, which modal? So notice they've already hedged this sentence. Students often expect. So now instead of hedging it twice, here you can use the strongest modal. Will guide and help their career, but sometimes the advisor is not all that you expect. So here it's sometimes. But see, again, the important thing in this sentence is it's already hedged, so you don't need to hedge it a second time. Now here the student has to decide. Now again, has to is the informal version of must. And that's a very strong to say to another student. So maybe it's a little too strong. So again, you could change that to should decide. And that gives a little more emphasis on the listener or the reader's choice in that, rather than saying you 100% have to do something.